Alright guys, I'm just setting this up. Hopefully it doesn't fall down. So this will be my first video. I'm hoping it's in screen. I'm hoping the sound's okay. So this channel, what is this channel gonna be? It's not gonna be some channel fucking bragging about who I am, because honestly, my life's totally fucked right now. This channel is gonna be about exposing a network in Vancouver, BC. So that's Canada. Then there's Alberta and Washington State. So it probably started, I'm gonna say over 3 years ago, but I only really figured it out about 2 years ago. So this is sort of like an affidavit in a way. I don't know if this video is gonna stay up. I know these guys will try and hack this channel. They possibly using a hacked phone from fucking guy from the Apple store, but I'm not actually sure if they do that. I think the main thing they do is they get serial numbers, IMEI numbers of phones, MAC addresses of your devices, so then they can clone your device on a network. Obviously the best thing they would do is get a MAC address or a password to your modem at home, which they did at a certain time, and they've done it to this landlord that I live with right now. My roommate's too scared to tell the landlord they're in our network, but I have two neighbors right now. One of them's name's Jason Booth, who I actually think, we're gonna get back to him, because I actually think he might be the reason why I stumbled across this network. He's got like a big red beard, and then there's some neighbors 2 doors down from me that are sitting with like ISMI catchers. So what an ISMI catcher does is, as soon as they have an IMEI number, which is what your phone contacts the tower with, it's like that's identifier number. So they can either use an ISMI catcher. If they know what your voice is, they can eventually listen to a call and find out what your IMEI number is. Or if you go to the Apple store, get your phone done, or they get a hold of your phone. Usually phones in Canada have on like, we still have SIM card trays. We're not all, like the United States I think uses whatever you call it, like not a virtual SIM. I can't think of the name of it though. But so on the tray on every phone in Canada, there's a written IMEI number. So as long as they're in between you and the tower, they can intercept a phone call, read your texts. So if you're calling a credit card company, if you're calling a bank, they can also see what URLs you go to and potentially bring you to like a shitty URL or a bad URL. So if you don't notice the URL at the top of the page, you might be on like a bank's website that they've created. But if you look at the URL, it'll be like 1 letter off or 2 letter off from what you're supposed to be. So these guys, like, it's this fucking network that's built. Now I understand it's operating in Alberta. I don't know if it goes further east than that. As far as I know, they're not on Eastern Canada. They're in Washington State and they're in Vancouver. And I think this network works or sells identities to the Russian and the Chinese government, which is fucking nuts. But if you are ever in Vancouver or know what Vancouver's like, Vancouver is probably 30% Chinese, 30% brown, 30% white, 10% miscellaneous, maybe 20% miscellaneous. So you can adjust those numbers by probably 10%. But I think it's pretty well known by some people in independent news and independent journalism in Canada, especially Western Canada, that China has infiltrated banks to, I'll use this as an example. I had to find out, the guy never used his name, so his name's Dollywall. His brother's Constable Dollywall of the Richmond RCMP. So that's the first guy that sent a phishing scheme to my iPad. So what that allowed them to do one day was, all of a sudden my iPad went up to like 50 or 60 gigabytes on my data plan. So I got a message from my data carrier saying, oh, you've gone over your data by, I don't even know how much data I had on my iPad at the time. So the carrier took it off that, but I noticed my iPad was super fucking hot and it didn't make sense. I'm like, I barely use this fucking thing. So I realized what he did was, through Discord, his username was MC, I think a capital MC _ Dragonbane. And he sent a phishing scheme to my iPad through Discord. It just showed like a fuzzy page when I opened the link. And then the other way they can do it is by calling you. I think they can call you through WhatsApp, Discord, certain apps like that, and then it gives them very limited access to iPhones and iPads. So if you have an iPhone, iPad, it's a way fucking better than having Samsung, apparently. So all I had to do is my iPad would die. As long as they lose connection, you take the SIM card out of it. I believe that loses their connection to your iPad to be able to monitor what's on your screen. I think a phone, you can use the microphone and camera, so you can listen to them and watch the camera. And I think what he said is on an iPad, you can't watch the camera, but it gives them access to the microphone and to see what's on your screen. Definitely see what URLs you're going to. So the ISMI catching thing I figured out recently. I'll have to get into all this technical shit. I've learned a lot in the last year about it, but to be honest, the reason why I was such a target is I fucking don't understand any of this shit. Like 2 years ago, if you mentioned an IMEI number to me, I wouldn't know what the fuck that is. And then an ISMI catcher, you know, this is something that the police have used for years. But like I said, his brother is Constable Dollywall of the Richmond RCMP. So I'm gonna just basically make this video about getting all the names out there, because this situation is so fucking serious that I can't get it all out in a video. I'm gonna start live streaming pretty much everywhere I go. I'm gonna get these guys on video. I know about 30 or 40 of them in this network that work through gas stations to cell phone stores to taxi cabs, Paladine Security. The two major funders of this, I believe, are a guy named Johnny Fong, so Johnnny, and then his last name, I believe, is Fong. And he's like this fucking billionaire developer that builds buildings. If you look at his profile, allegedly bridges, so I don't know what bridges he's built. I've never really looked into him, but he donated like $2.5 million to the Richmond Hospital. He's been funding the Richmond mayor, so that's Richmond, BC, Canada. His name's Mayor Brody. He's some white dude that's, he's got to be 60 plus years old now. So I knew this guy named Halsey Brand, and his dad was the mayor, and then the guy that's been mayor since him is this Mayor Brody. So that's going back all the way to like 2002. So there's been a white mayor in Richmond for like 23 fucking years or something like that. And if you know Richmond is, I'm gonna say 40%, no. Okay, Richmond I'll say is probably the 30-30, 30-10. So there's no way, like I've never even voted in my life because I lived in Richmond my whole life. I grew up there. I'm in my 40s now. And I never voted because your vote doesn't really matter, you know. It's whatever the Asian vote's gonna go in Richmond. And then I find out there's a white mayor in Richmond, and you can look it up. There's like pictures in the newspaper. This Dollywall. So I'm just gonna call him Dollywall's brother because I don't know his first name. I know he drives a gray G35 as of maybe a year and a half ago, so I haven't seen him in a while. But he's like a heavy set brown guy, probably 6 feet. Looks pretty much identical to his brother. Like you can't miss it. So it's Constable Dollywall, Richmond RCMP. His partner is Constable King, which I don't know what his involvement is, but it's Constable King. He's an Asian guy. And I believe they work with what's called a nursing unit in Richmond or some shit. So if someone calls the cops and the cops go, oh, this guy's fucking crazy or something, then there's a guy nurse or a girl nurse. Now, as far as I know, the girl nurse is in on it and the guy nurse isn't. From what he said he's just a fucking idiot. So I've met both of them, but I'll have to tell the story from the beginning. So you've got this Johnny Fong guy this guy was basically just explaining that they own this hotel, and it's called the Vancouver Airport Hotel. So it also has a car rental lot on it. So it's at Russ Baker Way and I'm gonna say Airport Road. It used to have a yellow roof. It used to have a restaurant called Elephant Castle. I'll go there. I'll show all this to you guys. I'll have to go to all these places. But so apparently he sold that hotel to some guy named Sakurai. I don't even know how to fucking spell it. I'll figure out who this guy is too. I think he lives in the penthouse of that hotel though. And they only have like a few floors rented out. I think they were like part of like the big COVID hotel scam. Like they were renting out like tons of hotel rooms for like government subsidy, COVID type shit. So there's a company called KTL Trucking that I know. That's like $1 billion. I don't know if it's $1 billion, but it's definitely one of the biggest trucking companies in BC. It's located, I think, down 8 Road in Richmond. You go down 8 Road, you take a right from Westminster Highway, and it's basically all these buildings that they store everything from, all the imports, like duty shit, like cigarettes, alcohol. I worked there for a few months. At the time, they were storing like a bunch of fucking sawmill shit too, like wood and shit at the time. So, but the point is this trucking company operates obviously on the West Coast. I'm sure some of their trucks go East Coast, but they basically pull containers off fucking the off the port all day long, and they store some of it, and they obviously deliver some of it, but this gives them access to like pretty much anything that comes into Vancouver. If you're a giant, which I learned this, if you're a giant trucking company, you basically have access to all the goods that are entering a city. It's actually quite a powerful thing. So it was an old guy that ran it. He was like a little senile. He used to run around the yard. I don't know if he's still around anymore, but I think his daughter runs it now. So I believe the main funders of this network that's doing one of the biggest identity thefts in Western Canada is this Johnny Fong guy, KTL Trucking. I don't know how this Sakurai guy fits in there. It sounds like he's somehow a part of it. And then I don't know who else funds it, but they have the Richmond mayor for sure. They have the Richmond fire chief for sure. I don't know his name. I'll go talk to him at some point. They have about 10 or 12 RCMP officers in Richmond. So Richmond has about 400 RCMP officers. I had to look into it. So I know there's Constable Dollywall, then there's, I believe, sergeants, the next one up. There's Sergeant Kumar and a Ukrainian guy, which I don't know his name, but I know what he looks like. Then there's another 3 Asian cops that I know that I'll have to look at pictures and find out who they are. Then there's an officer that introduced herself as Constable Kim, who I don't even think a Constable Kim exists, but I'll have to find a picture because there was a police report made about me that said it was by Constable Saul, and some Constable Saul made some falsified police reports saying I don't think I can say this on YouTube, but it said something like that I want to off, or I want to blah 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 myself or something, and I'm just like, who the fuck is this that wrote this? I've never met a Constable Saul. I did ask around, and she is a female. Her partner was Constable Spooner. He gave me his card. So if this Constable Kim is this Constable Saul, his partner's with Constable Spooner. These people all are corrupt cops. They work for whatever the fuck this network is. I don't have a name for it. I don't even know if everybody in this network even knows who they work for. So if you start looking up this Johnny Fong guy, you'll start seeing that he has ties, I believe, to the Chinese National Party. I think he's I think he's born in Hong Kong. So this is all something I'm going to be researching over time. I'm expecting to make videos over the next couple years, or at least couple months. I'd like to get into other stuff, but as of right now, I'm gonna just straight up say I am a victim of like these multi-million-dollar companies and people that have fully stolen my and my family's identity. The story just gets more crazy as I tell it, so I understand some people might have a hard time understanding or believing me or giving me the benefit of the doubt, because it just gets nuts. The more and more I talk, it gets more and more nuts. So I believe these people are the ones that hacked London Drugs like 4 years ago. I believe Jason Booth was the one that took a stick and put it inside one of the computers at their Richmond warehouse. So this is maybe something London Drugs can confirm if they even care at this point 4 years later. But the point of that hack was basically every London Drugs employee's information was released. So that could be social insurance numbers, to birth dates, to I think credit card info, to whatever London Drugs would have on the computer of their employees. It could be customers as well. I'm not actually sure, but that's something this Dollywall guy said. So to make it to understand it, this Dollywall guy basically spent months talking about who he works for, what they do, and it just sounded ridiculous to me. I didn't even fucking put a thought into this ridiculous dude saying all this shit to these people online until they fucking hacked me, and it started happening to me, and I realized a bunch of shit this guy said is true, and then some of the shit like was him just trying to pig butcher information from me, and some of it was to mislead me. Like he said that, oh, they can access the Canadian cell phone towers. Here, let me make sure this is still recording. I just gotta double check it so I don't waste my talking. Yep, it is. That's good. So, sorry about that. I don't want to like have to say this over and over again. So he was just basically saying all this shit in the chat, and then eventually, like, the point was to let him know he hacked me, so that I would maybe run around and change passwords on some of my accounts. They took over my original Facebook account, which would be Sean, S-C-A-N. Last name is C-S-O-N-T-A-L-A. And my old email, which would be called skfabricating@gmail.com. I'm not sure what other accounts they got, but what he did was they messaged a bunch of people on my Facebook list I don't talk to. They, what else did they do? They might have text messaged some of my contacts that I don't talk to, because I did talk to some friends after the hack, and they were like, yeah, you sent me some weird messages and shit. So I don't know what they were trying to do, but they were basically just trying to get as much information as they could, and then once they have as much as they can get, then that's when he lets me know he hacked me. And then that's when what do you do when you have an iPhone? You go to the fucking iPhone store, I guess, right? You go to fucking what is it called? What the fuck is it called? The iPhone store, or the Apple store, I guess, right? So one of his employees is named Mike. He talked about. He said he's from the Burnaby store, but for some reason he was in Richmond the day I had to go fucking do my phones. So he had a little mustache at the time. He's a white dude. I'm going to be describing people by color, race, everything. I mean, it's the only way I can, I guess, profile. Like, it's the same as cops do, you know. So the main people in this network, for some reason, are Ukrainian, which I think is the Russia connection, and then Asian, which is Chinese. Not just any Asian, but Chinese, and I'm going to say East Indian, so I don't know if Hindu, Sikh, whatever. Those are the three. 90% of this network is that. So he said, he made a mention like some guy met him on vacation or some shit. I don't know. I don't know if that's like how they met up with these Ukrainians or the Russian. I'm not exactly sure who he was even talking about when he was talking about that, but basically he said a bunch of shit to maybe try and scare me, as well as a bunch of shit that I think he just said over months, not realizing that I would remember all this information. Or he was trying to brag to his friends. I'll give you all these guys' usernames, PlayStation names, everything. They're secondary to it, these people. They live in the States. One of them's an IRS agent. Fucking Brusetto, I think, is his fucking tag with a capital B. There was this Pro Dragon guy. He was from, like, I want to say Arkansas, but I don't know. He was from some hurricane fucking place or something. Then there was like some Scottish dude or whatever. So he was like basically explaining his network and what they do for like 2-3 months while I was in a just playing a game with them in a chat. And then this whole time they were like pig butchering information, and I didn't really tell them much, but that didn't fucking matter because these guys had already found out where I lived. So the day he told me he hacked me, all of a sudden I'm like, there's like fucking 10 brown guys in my neighborhood walking around. Even the few days before he hacked me, this guy was up on my roof. Like, he came, and I actually met him at the Chevron gas station. once. So he was trying to make it look like my card wouldn't work, so I'd put it in and he'd get my bank code. And he wouldn't say anything because he knew I would recognize his voice. He's got a very distinctive voice. And I realized that that's the guy. So I caught this guy in my cable box one day. This is all within the same week. I caught him walking to his car. He said he has a G35 in one of the chats, and when he was walking to his car, it was a gray G35. I took his license plate down. I took a bunch of their license plates down. I gave them to a Vancouver cop. So this brings me to even the corrupt Vancouver cops. So I'm not saying all these cops are corrupt. Like, I'm saying maybe 10 or 15 of the Richmond ones, which are 400. Then the Vancouver cop that's corrupt, he's got like a sleeve, at least one sleeve of tattoos. He's a white dude, 5'10", let's say. And his partner was like a 6'3" black guy, kind of skinny. And I think when I gave him, so I'll be talking to him. I'm gonna go confront all these guys. I gave him a list of like 20 license plates. Most of them were Teslas. So these guys basically drive like 10 or 15 white and 10 or 15 charcoal Teslas. And they switch the license plates up on them. Sometimes they have all Washington plates on them. Sometimes they have truck plates on them. But 100% in Richmond, I'll know where to go to find most of these cars because they charge them all at the mall stations, the hospital. And it was basically like I just noticed all these Teslas following me, and I'm like, who the fuck are these people? And then I started recognizing each of them. I'm like, how the fuck am I seeing the same guy 4 times, 5 times in a week, like where I go? Another place I saw this Dollywall guy was in a Rogers store in Richmond. So the main thing these guys have is every single gas station in Richmond. We're talking about the biggest companies in the world. We're talking about Apple employees, this Mike employee guy. Then there's this other guy named Gord. I believe if his name tag was right, it's Gord. They're both from the Burnaby store, but I guess you can go to other Apple stores. So I'm gonna say there's probably about 10 of them through the Apple stores in Vancouver. So, and if you go to an Apple store, it's basically they'll help you. And then I don't know if they're capable of putting bad software on your shit. I'm gonna find out. I have a MacBook and a couple phones, but I think the main thing that they do is they take serial numbers, they take IMEI numbers, MAC addresses of a device, and basically once they have those with ISMI catchers, with getting any MAC address of like modems of your devices, they can then spoof devices on your network, spoof devices to connect to your network. Obviously a password to your modem's probably the worst thing that could happen. Now, I can't explain why they're targeting me. I have some ideas. I'll get into that later. But the amount of effort and money these guys have spent just on me, who doesn't have any money, that's not going to get any money. I think it's a bit of a personal vendetta. And I just stumbled across this fucking network that is like totally ravaging through Vancouver and Western Canada. I don't know if they're just getting to authentication, emptying bank accounts, credit cards, maybe taking loans out in people's names, or they're actually fully getting identities of people and people's family. The main thing they kept asking me when I would talk to these people, like I'll explain in a second, they kept asking me if I had a kid. And I think it's because I was attached to one of my ex-girlfriend's kid, and I was always, but it's something to do with like they target people without kids. And I think that has to do with like getting someone's full identity, and eventually that person will disappear, be gone, which is going to be me apparently. Well, I mean, we'll see in the next year or two, right? I'm going to make these videos, so I'm not saying I'm going to be able to prove all this fucking shit. Like, I'm really not saying I can prove everything, but I will be able to prove some of it. For right now, it's just getting as much information together on video as I possibly can, because at this point, I don't really see any other options. So what they have is he talked about this Dr. Gill that works at the Richmond Hospital, Dr. Shabbat's. They work through like Richmond Mental Health, and there's like a Richmond Mental Health in Richmond that has like a Dr. Bondar. I believe the guy's name's Owen, is like a case manager. Those doctors I can 100% confirm worked for these guys. Now, the hospital connection is, like I said, the Richmond mayor This Johnny Fong guy's donated millions. He runs construction companies. He builds like buildings in Vancouver. I think he even gets funding from the Bank of Canada. And I'm gonna have to do a full research on this guy, or hopefully someone can, because I'm only one person. So, but I'm literally making this my life's work. You know, like these guys have been breaking into my car. Like the first time I noticed was like I came to my car one day, and I used to leave these windows open. I have these guards here, and I used to leave these open, and someone was spraying something in my car. And I was like, the guy walked away right away. This was before I even knew I got hacked. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy spraying something in my car? I'm like, that is fucking weird. So then after that, I start kind of feeling like, you know, like every time I get in my car, it's like something, you know? And eventually I think they got a key to my car. So hopefully I've stopped them from being able to get in it. I'll put a camera in my car, everything I can. But one of the main things is they ended up taking out my OnStar of the fucking thing under my back seat. So I was always looking through my car. I was worried about, like, as soon as I realized there's corrupt cops involved, I found a blue Bud Light aluminum can under my back seat, and when I ripped the bottom open, it had a fucking little microchip in the bottom, like little computer chip in the fucking bottom. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And I think anyone from the Richmond RCMP will confirm this, that they actually use trackers, or have in the past, of a blue aluminum Bud Light can with a microchip in the bottom. So my point is to try and give as much information as possible that can be confirmed that I would have no idea about. Like, I don't, you know, I'm not friends with like Richmond police officers. I don't know what tracking devices they use or don't use. And there's no like police investigation on me. I don't do anything criminally or whatever. But when I realized there was cops involved, I started looking at my car before I drove it. I'm like, are these guys gonna plant something on me? Like, what the fuck is going on here? So that's what I found, and then I realized they had taken that out of my car, and then like 5 days later, they had put it back in my car. And I believe that they have mechanics that work for them, and they literally like took it out and rewired it, or did whatever they could. So maybe that would have given them access to unlock my car, like OnStar can. It's a GM car, and it would have given them, I guess, maybe the ability to shut off my car even, you know? So I got rid of the thing. Like, your car doesn't need one of those. So I got rid of it right away after I realized it had gotten into my car. The other thing they were doing was they put a little clip on my ignition, which wouldn't allow my ignition to fully turn back. So that would mean there'd always be power to the ignition in my car. So I don't know if that was for cameras or microphones in here or what. So I'm gonna have to go from the story right from the beginning. I'll take you to my old house. I'll show you how they were like getting into my house, into my attic. I found these like arsenic burners above my room that made black spots on my roof. There was an arsenic burner in the eave that I have pictures of this stuff in the eave at the side of my house. So like I would walk out my door, and all of a sudden you would just get hit by like some sort of like disgusting fucking shit. And this Dollywall guy said, yeah, they have these it'll just look like a black box. They'll put it in the eave of the house. It's made of like plywood, and then it's just covered with like a black covering on it. And I have pictures of it. And I guess the bottom's hollow. So if you think of like an overhang of someone's house, they have that like metal grating. Well, anything that's like airborne like that, like if you're burning, which I believe is arsenic. He never used the word arsenic, but he said it's a non-smell, non-taste, and it works like a nerve agent. And then what I would end up getting is I'd notice I'd get a sore throat. I would get a headache. I'd wake up feeling kind of like shitty. So I guess like that shit was either like coming in the window, or I believe it can go through drywall. Like I think see, this is stuff I would never know. I think it can go through drywall. Like drywall isn't solid, and that's why you were getting a bit of black spots in the room. And then you could almost smell a little burning sometimes. So I'll take you to that house and I'll explain that there's so much more to it. There were multiple neighbors involved, probably 3 or 4 neighbors in that neighborhood. So I don't know if what they do is they come and they set up in a neighborhood, and they have these ISMI catchers, and they just start fucking getting information from everyone in a neighborhood, but I believe this Johnny Fong guy actually builds buildings, and he said something like they make it so like in a building your Wi-Fi will go to, like, you know, they'll be able to get into the rooms that all the Wi-Fi wires go to, and they'll basically just start data collecting on everyone in the building. So I don't know if these guys, I know the main thing's like to get two authentication. Like they have a ton of people that work at the banks. This is why I swear the Chinese government's involved, because I can probably tell you about 20 bank employees that I know for a fact collaborate with these guys. Now, he said the bank employees can't look up your stuff necessarily, but when you go into a bank and you bring your card, then they can pull your information up on the screen. And if they can get your banking information and your two authentication, or have you log on to their banking site, like I said, when they direct you to a bad URL, then they'll have you, then you'll put in your banking information, and then they'll just end up transferring your money or something like that. So this is like a fucking investigation cops need to do. I've contacted the cops about 10 times, and the 10 times I contacted them in Richmond, let's say, I got the same 8 or 10 cops every single time, which they was always on a different day at different time. I went to the police station probably 3 times. He said the 3 ladies that work in the front office of the Richmond RCMP are involved. So as soon as I walk in there and talk to them, they say, okay, wait for an officer. And then the first officer when I went was Officer Kumar. Or sorry, the first officer was Officer Kwan. So when I realized these people were in my neighborhood, there was like 10 of them in the neighborhood, like fucking, I don't know what they were trying to do, scare me or whatever. They were walking all around my house. And like I've lived there for 12 years. There's probably had like 0 brown people that lived in that neighborhood. So it just stood out like ridiculously, you know. And I hate to have to bring like color into it, but this whole situation is gonna have to be identifying people. So if you're in a neighborhood with all Chinese people or all, say, brown people, and all of a sudden there's like, you know, 10 or 15 white people walking around your house, that's just a little suspicious. So in this case, it's like 10 brown guys. They had an Echo parked out front that this guy talked about, and a Paladine security van, which I think that's where the ISMI catchers might have been in. Or, like I said, they had neighbors and apartments in my neighborhood. So the first time is when I realized I got hacked. I made a phone to the police, and I talked allegedly to an Officer Kwan, and he said he'd take a drive-by through the neighborhood. So I forget why I called him back like 20 minutes later, half an hour later, but I was out front my house. I'll show you the neighborhood. There's no driving through my neighborhood without seeing you, especially a cop car or if any car drove through with someone that I didn't recognize. Like it's a one-way in, one-way out. It's like you can't miss it. So then I called back and he said, I drove through your neighborhood. I didn't see anything suspicious. And right away I'm like, okay, this is fucking suspicious, because I was out front my house the whole 15-20 minutes. There was no officer that drove through my neighborhood. And he gave me, I think it was like 1 or 2 police, like a police number. I was like, okay, what is the claim number, police? So I wrote that down, and then several days later, I went to, where was I? I think I contacted the police again or something. I'm gonna have to, I'll go through the story more thoroughly in the future. And they said the number doesn't exist. So then that's when I met Constable Dollywall's brother. So I called the police and I said, look, you got to have someone come down here. I've made multiple police reports. Now you guys are telling me they don't exist. So that's when I realized who Constable Dollywall was, and his brother, this so I'm just calling him MC_Dragonbane. He basically said his brother's a Richmond RCMP officer. And as soon as I met his brother, I was like, holy shit, this is his brother. Like you can't even mistake them. They almost look identical, these two. I mean, not identical, but you can tell they're brothers. And that's probably one of 3 times I met him. They basically just brush you off. Still to this day, there's no proper police report. They've falsified reports. Like I said, this Constable Saul completely falsified a report saying I said something to them. I never did. I don't even know a Constable Saul. I never met them. I remember all the names of pretty much all the cops I met, of these 8 or 10. because at this point I'm like, okay, these are corrupt cops that we're dealing with, you know. Like I could tell right away, like if anyone calls you with someone hacking you, getting into your like home modem, sending a phishing scheme, and then all these people in your neighborhood around your house, there's at least going to be a police report saying that. So I'll request this. In Canada, you got to request it from Ottawa. I'm just going to make sure this is still recording. Yeah, it is. I'll have to request this from Ottawa to get all the reports. So the whole idea of these people is what they do is they try and get you freaking out and then calling the police, and then they start writing you up as like, I don't know, a crazy person, I guess. So the whole point is to try and get you to, I guess like a mental health thing is like, oh, someone's hacking me, someone's in my phone, someone's fucking, you know, I guess that's like something common with fucking people that are crazy, I don't know, or delusional, I guess, and I guess I can understand that. But this guy said all these people's names. Like he literally used Dr. Gill's name, and as soon as I met Dr. Gill at the Richmond Hospital, like 100%, this guy is literally, like, doctors take oaths, cops take oaths. So they're literally fucking scumbags that are screwing people over. So the main thing these guys do is they set up in places that they can start getting information from people. So the hospital is one of the main things. People come in and they use their Wi-Fi. So if you go in the hospital and use a Wi-Fi, they can basically, you know, hack into your device. So they're literally like anyone that's admitted to like Richmond Hospital. So this is Coastal Health. There's another doctor that works for them at VGH called Dr. Juan. He said his name's Dr. Juan. So when I went there, who do I see? I see Dr. Juan. And then there's a kind of like white older lady, and I think he's maybe from Kenya, or a black guy that's a nurse. And those two are corrupt, and Dr. Juan at VGH is corrupt for sure. So I'm not going to try and prove all these. This is more just like getting all these names out hypothetically, you know. This is all a big joke, you know. These names are all made up, you know. Don't take this serious. You know. Then you have okay, I can explain the other two doctors they have at Richmond. I don't know their names, so it's an older white lady with short hair. I'll have to figure out her name. And then there is he referred to this guy. He said like the girls that they work with all find this guy super hot. He's like this super good looking fucking dude. He's a doctor. And sure as shit, I go to the fucking hospital and I end up fucking meeting this guy. And I'm telling you, like, this is like a super good looking dude. Like you can't mistake it. Like the way that he explained him is 100% accurate. So I know for sure this this is the doctor he was talking about. He didn't use them all by names, but 100%. I'll have to find a picture of him or confront him, because until you see, like, I just knew right away. So what they're doing is they're fucking harassing you and poisoning your car, poisoning your fucking house. I believe they're using arsenic. So I went to the hospital to get arsenic tested. You know, I figured out, I'm like, okay, look, whatever this guy was talking about, I think it's arsenic. So I'd go to the hospital, I'd be like, look, I just want to get an arsenic test. And that's how I started getting in like more and more shit. So they wouldn't do the fucking test for me. I made an appointment with my family doctor, who he knew by name. So he knew my family doctor at this point was already Dr. Dingara, which is, you know, these guys have been setting up on me for like a year, learning everything about me. So I make an appointment with my doctor to go get tested. I show up at my doctor's office like a couple days later, and they say my appointment's canceled. So this happened twice, I think, that they canceled my doctor's appointment. So I should have just stayed there. I think, was he away? I should have just stayed there at the time. And so I've been to, I'm gonna say 2 or 3 hospitals, and I've dealt with at least 3 out of 4 times I dealt with their doctors, and then maybe a 4th time I didn't deal with their doctor. But I went there specifically to get an arsenic test, and every single time they just rejected me. And I'm not saying that most nurses and most doctors are corrupt. I'm saying that these guys, and this guy with his money, this Johnny Fong guy, has been investing millions into Coastal Health, which is UBC VGH, which is a giant place. So they might only have a few doctors at VGH, like this Dr. Juan guy. But when you come in to like an emergency, they'll just have one of their doctors jump on staff. I think you can check this with the hospital that my doctor can probably almost always just come in and work a shift, especially in the emergency room. Like I went to the hospital in White Rock and I think they had one doctor on staff and like 50 patients waiting in the emergency. So if at any point a doctor came on staff and said, oh, you know, I'll work and pick up some slack here, they would. So when I would go to the hospital, the doctor would either be on call or he would be there, or she, or they would show up, and then they would just make sure they pull my form out. Like I was getting the best service at all the banks I was going to, all the hospitals, like literally like no wait. Like I would go in there and I would have like a small issue of wanting to get tested, and there would be people waiting there for fucking 4 or 5 hours, and I would just walk right through within like 25 fucking minutes or something like that, and this doctor would be helping me and shooting me out the fucking door right away. And I remember asking one of the doctors, I'm like, how am I up when I'm looking at it? Like I forget, this person was like so sick in the waiting room and they'd been there for like 4 hours and I was there for 25 minutes, and the doctor like pulled me in and like helped me. Or like when I'd go to a bank, immediately someone would, like as soon as I get to the front of the line, they would open up, this person would open up the teller like at the end, and I would like get like the best service and they would help me. So to name everybody involved, we're talking about every single gas station in Richmond except maybe Shell on Garden City. I only know of probably like say 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 of them I could tell you the employees at which gas station. It doesn't mean every employee is in on it, but they either have a manager or a few employees. So the purpose of them are obviously to get your card numbers, PIN numbers. I guess they allow a machine or let you use a machine that when you put it in, you can get your PIN off it. There's not every machine of every store that can do that. Like obviously a lot of places they can. So then there's this Paladine Security Company, KTL Trucking, Sakurai. We're talking about, they have employees through like a bunch of the hotels in Richmond. So that's another place that they get a lot of identity off people. Anyone that's staying in a hotel can log on to the hotel's Wi-Fi. Now, it's not like every motherfucker in Vancouver is targeted. Most people here will find this unbelievable. Because like if you told me this like 4 years ago, I'd probably think you were crazy. So how much can this network target? Is it 0.001 of the population, you know? Are we talking about 10,000 people have been targeted by these people over the last 5 or so years? They said the main thing that they got that works for them is that 2 authentication. So when COVID happened, they ended up getting 2 authentication for everything. Everything's 2 authentication. Your banking, any social media, so like it all turned to 2 authentication. So then what they can do is they can either do like a SIM card swap, as long as they have your account number from, or your postal code through what we have 3 companies here. We have Rogers, TELUS, and Bell. So when you start going to all these cell phone stores, they'll either write down or take a picture of the IMEI number or the SIM card that you have in your phone. And the SIM card, I don't exactly know what that does other than SIM card swapping, which would allow you to know that you've been fucked because your phone won't work after that. But that also will allow them to potentially clone a phone, and that would be the day that they transfer anything out of your account or do anything nefarious. The other way would be just to get enough information about you, like your Equifax information to your social insurance number. Like previous jobs would be like Equifax, your healthcare number, your ID, your driver's license. So they would have someone at the motor vehicle branch they can go to, have your driver's license printed out, and then they'll have their picture on that ID, and they'll just start building all this identity of a person. Now what happens at the very end, I don't know. You know, I don't know if everyone's different. I don't know if they're literally selling these identities to, like, you know, the Russian government or the Chinese government. So then they now have a complete identity of someone in this country, or maybe overseas. Now they have a complete full identity overseas somewhere. to just ripping off credit cards, ripping off people's ID. I'm not them. I don't exactly know, but I can tell you, I know most of these people that are involved, this network, and I'm gonna put my reputation on it. I'm gonna be making videos, going and confronting all these people. I'm not a confrontational person. It's gonna be hard for me, but I can tell you that Rogers cell phone stores are completely infiltrated through the Lower Mainland. Bell and TELUS I think is a little bit better, but I already know the manager, like just for example, the manager at the TELUS store in what's it called? It's in Burnaby, Metro Town. 100% in on it. Maybe some of his employees. I can tell you this Jamal guy right beside the Apple Store in Richmond that works at. So like Rogers has a bunch of corporate stores, but they have most of their stores are owned by somebody. So you just got to look at who these stores are owned by, and when you go in and start talking to them, I'll be confronting all these people. I've been to most of the stores, checking it out. I've even been to Alberta, where he talked about this guy named Leslie Welding, Rocky Mountain Hotel. It was like an oil town, a small town in Alberta that went bankrupt during COVID because they strictly rely on oil. He talked about this huge dump truck, cement company that couldn't pay the bills. So like the main thing this guy does is he's like a billionaire, or the Chinese government, whoever the fuck it is, puts money into banks, has employees at banks, and they'll just have if a company's like in dire need, it's like, you're either going to go bankrupt or we'll give you this loan, where most banks would say no. They have a person at the bank and he'll sort of back it up, and he'll do this even for the people that work for him. Like this Vic guy that's the guy that's been hacking me in Surrey here, is friends with this Jason Booth guy. The guy said they helped him get an American credit card. So I think it turns out he has an American credit card. So, or like if they got to go for a line of credit. So like I've told friends about this, and they have a hard time understanding, well, how the fuck are they affording this huge fucking network? And I'm like, well, I don't think they pay these guys all that much. Like I heard the Paladine security guys make $400 a month on top of their wage. I think anyone at a cell phone store that when you go in and they give you the SIM card number, I don't know if it's anybody or it's just the people that they're targeting, right? And then you give them the SIM card or IMEI number. I think that's worth $300-400 a pop. I can show you these two, this guy and this girl that work on Sundays in the Chilliwack Mall. I'll show you them. He specifically talked about these two that literally just work on the weekend just to try and make that extra few $100s selling SIM cards and IMEI numbers. Okay, so all the gas stations, Paladine, it goes into Vancouver as well. We're talking about most banks in Richmond. There's two brown ladies that work at the 2 in Blundell TD. I don't know the person that works at Granville, but I know there is a person that works at the Granville. And then there's a Francis and One Road TD that pretty much, he said the whole bank's in on it. Like there's like 4, 5, 6, 7 employees there that all know about it. And it's not like they're doing like a ton of wrong shit, other than when you go in and they look up your information or you bring your bank card in, they're going to get your bank card number, potentially any information off your account. He said the guy keeps like $2 million in the Coast Capital in Steveston, so maybe that can be verified. I met the manager there. Like this guy said all this shit, so what I started doing was I started going around all these fucking places. I'm like, okay, well, he talked about the Coast Capital in Richmond and the manager, and it's a small bank, so anyone that keeps a couple $1 million in there, I guess it's like, I'll keep this money in here, but then every once in a while you got to give me a printout of, someone that I need, like his credit or his history or social, like I think banks get social insurance numbers to addresses to whatever the fuck, okay, so let me think for a second, because I talked a lot there. This was literally just to get the names out, but all this stuff I'm gonna eventually go through step by step as to how it happened and how I learned it, and then eventually I'll start confronting these people. And I think enough proof will come forward when I confront them. You're going to see these people don't want to be on camera. I have a few ways I think of catching them, but I think eventually it'll be able to become clear. But I understand how fucking nuts this sounds. I'm not like not aware of that. Because I have friends and family that just can't seem to wrap their heads around it. And the main question is why would these people target me for so long? And I can't answer that. I have a guess, which I'll get down to, like, you know, I'll get to that another time. But I think a lot of people, they do this too. They didn't have a person sitting in a PlayStation chat for 3 months just fucking bragging about what they do and like all this fucking technical shit about ISMI catchers to MAC addresses to IMEI numbers. So okay, let's get to this. So this KTL trucking company, they store like all the cigarettes. So when I talk about the biggest brands in the world, I think one of the biggest money makers these guys have is what they're doing. So if you look, this is something ridiculous that Canada did. So if you look at a cigarette, you can see this has so there's only like 3 types of filters. There's these ones, a little bit shorter, and then ones without the brown stripe, but they just look like that. There's no identifier on them. There's no individual packaging for cigarette companies with their names on it. So what they do with a bunch of cigarettes is they literally repackage them. So they buy a bunch of shitbag fucking tobacco and they repackage, like, because they store all these cigarettes that come in through, I don't know how cigarettes even come in, but they obviously get stored in this, where, like, this is something you can probably confirm because I shouldn't know this. KTL Trucking stores all the alcohol, or a shit ton of alcohol and a shit ton of cigarettes, which come through, I believe, a company called Imperial, and there's another company. So there was a time when I'm like, there's no way Imperial can be involved. Like, this is like, Imperial's got to be like a multi-billion-dollar company too, or like hundreds and hundreds. Like they handle like 70% of the cigarettes in Canada. But that's not what it is. It's the company that's storing all these cigarettes, and all they have to do is get a little like mailing fucking thing. It's like a little mailing stamp. And I guess they either keep the packaging really cleanly, but what they'll do is they'll start selling those to like people, like, so you're getting quality De Maurier to quality Benson and Hedges to whatever cigarette brands, you know, they choose to do, maybe the cheaper ones even, like Canadian Classic. But in Canada, a pack of cigarettes is like 20 bucks. Even a carton's like probably close to 200 bucks. So every single carton that they take like shitbag fucking tobacco and repackage, they could probably sell that for 100 bucks. And then they've maybe made a package of, you know, a carton for maybe 20, 30 bucks. Because all they need is these cigarette looking filters. And sometimes when I would buy a pack, they wouldn't look the same. Like the ones that were supposed to have a brown stripe on them don't. So they would either not have certain ones, or they wouldn't package them totally properly. And if you talk to any of these cigarette companies, there's no way they mispackage the 1 or 2 filters that they can. So I would say this is probably one of their most money maker is repackaging cigarettes across Canada. And when they fucking let me know that they hacked me, all of a sudden I would go to the store and I would buy a cigarette and it would just taste like metallic, awful chemical. And I was like, at first I was just like beside myself. I'm like, are you fucking saying that I just bought a bunk pack of cigarettes? So then I started going around all these fucking gas. So the only place you can get them is gas stations and Save on Foods in Richmond. So that's another place they've infiltrated. They've got a ton of people that work at Save on Foods in Richmond. I know at least about 5 or 10 of them. I'll be going there and talking to them in the future too. And I think that's just to fuck you up. So literally I had to like stop smoking, or I would have to like go to the States to get cigarettes, or I believe if I would have just come out to like Surrey or other areas, I might have been able to, but at the time I literally was like smoking some shit cigarettes, because it's like my fucking worst addiction is cigarettes and coffee. So These guys literally have people that work through like coffee shops to gas stations to Paladine Security to like Richmond, like mental health hospitals, Vancouver. They're all the way out into Chilliwack, the lower mainland. Like I said, they're in like small towns in Alberta. Like when I went to Alberta to the 7-Elevens, like there was no problem with cigarettes there ever. Like they obviously need someone working in the store, or else these cigarettes would end up getting sold to someone they don't want to, and then it would probably start causing some complaints, right? So if they don't have someone working in the store, or if you go to these gas stations in Richmond, they don't have the like packs all set out for you. Like some stores you go to and they have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of packs of cigarettes stacked up behind the shelf. They literally just have one pack, one pack, one pack, one pack, one pack. And then when I would go in there, they would just pick out one of the fucking bad ones and give it to me. Which means like they would like send out boxes of bad cigarettes, but they would have to control who they're selling them to. So trust me, I understand that sounds absolutely fucking fantasy, but I'll put my whole reputation on everything that I'm saying as being as factually true as possible. I'm gonna say 70% out of 100% of what I say is like I'm right about, because there's gonna be some stuff that I'm wrong about, that I'm maybe speculating, that maybe I was mistaken. Like he said he could get into the cell phone towers, and he was misleading me by saying that, because it's not the cell phone towers I think that they're in. I think it's that they put ISMI catchers and then intercept calls and intercept, like I said, your URLs, or at least see what URLs you're going to, and can direct you to a bad URL, and can see your text messages. I believe that's all you can do out of an ISMI catcher. So I'll get more into why I think he said he was in the towers. I think it was so I wouldn't. Yeah, I'll have to get back into it. Okay, so what is the most things that has happened that I can tell you for sure? So when I went to the Apple Store the first time, they kept getting into my Apple ID. They would reset my Apple ID, and then it would always be like shared across devices. So like I think they were using Focus and share across devices or something to basically just see what apps you're using. So if they have any Apple employee or anybody has a serial number of like say your computer and your Apple ID, they can see, I believe, what your Apple ID is. And I'm not sure if they can see the actual apps on your Apple ID, but that's I think the main purpose of having these people that work through the Apple stores, is because they're able to get those serial numbers and those IMEI numbers, and then they can at least monitor some of your shit that you're doing. I don't think they can actually get passwords unless your passwords are in your phone and they hack your phone. But this is going to be a testament. So I took this phone to the Apple Store a week ago, had it completely fucking wiped, and now I'm using it. I've created, obviously you got to create a Gmail account and create a YouTube account, and now I'm fucking gonna start posting on YouTube. If this account gets hacked, that means that 100% somehow they put bad software on my phone, or because how else would they get these passwords? I just created them. I don't use this phone for anything other than this. I will be getting better recording stuff, guys. I won't lie, I don't have a lot of fucking money. I've been basically fucking poisoned by these guys for the last like year or two. This car, I'm gonna get it tested. I'm gonna be ordering testers online to test water. I'm gonna be getting an arsenic air tester, fucking everything. And hopefully those tests I'll be able to show you guys in a week or two. But I'm gonna basically be running around and confronting all these guys over the next couple of months that work at these stores. It's gonna be more about just getting it on film and getting these guys on film. I'm not expecting you guys to just believe me 100%, you know? Like, I'm not sure if I saw someone making videos like this, I would believe them 100%. I'm not sure if this is gonna be the first video I post either. This might literally just be a video that I keep all this, you know, so I've said all the names of the people that I know are involved. I haven't even gotten into the airport. Like, so Richmond, I think the reason why they're so involved in Richmond is Richmond, you have to go to Richmond to go to the airport. So I think that allows them to somewhat monitor you coming and going from the airport, going different places. I'm not sure about that. I'm planning on probably hopping on a flight to the East Coast to do some phone shit to make sure I get some clean phones that they don't know the IMEI numbers of, which you can do through Facebook Marketplace. But I definitely don't want them to know the account at the company that I get it from and the SIM card that I have. And I'm probably going to take my computer to an Apple store there or else I'm going to go to the States, because the last time I went to the Apple store was a week and a half ago, and I dealt with this guy Gord, who, let me just make sure this is still recording. Yeah, it is. I went to the Apple store, so I'm not going to edit any of this, guys. This isn't like me trying to edit, make myself look cool and fucking make up some shit and be famous online. This is like literally like life and death. Like, these guys have been fucking with me for so long, and I have so much information on them that this is my way to fight back. Like I said, I tried contacting the police like 10 times. I'll be going to the cop shop. I'll be talking to them. I'm going to be filming all this shit, because it's at this point, I believe it's my only weapon. Shit, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying there? Yeah, I'm not sure if this is going to be the video I post first, because I understand, I'm a little nervous, and I'm just putting all the information out there. Like, I understand this isn't probably going to come off that well. I should really talk slower and break it up, break it up better without just blurting out all the information like I am. So what else can I say about these guys? What are they? Okay, let's get to the names. Okay, so there's a border guard. There's a red-headed border guard that works at the Peace Arch border. She's a little heavier set, mid-30s, I'm gonna say. I don't know, maybe even 30, I'm not sure. So they have border guards they pay. They have one Bellingham cop I know that they pay. I don't know his name, I've never seen him. But he was following me in Bellingham at one point, which was kind of funny, actually. He was like shining his high beams in my car when I was sitting in the Bellingham parking lot. It was fucking weird. I just ended up when I went to a restaurant and ate, and then I think I came back to Canada after that or something. But 100%, this cop was just like, I don't know, he was just like fucking, he pulled like 3 different times to shine his high beams in my car at like 8 o'clock in the Bellingham parking lot. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And this is actually something these guys have done in their own cars in Canada. Like, I would sit in a parking lot for a little while at night, even crashing my car a couple times because they were fucking poisoning the shit out of my room in Richmond. And then a car, like a taxi guy, would come and park right, a little bit away from me, and then just shine his high beams in my front window. Like, it's probably happened like 10 times over like a couple of months or something like that. So he said, this Dollywall guy said they have 2 people that work at the border. They don't have one that works at the truck border. So if you're from Vancouver or Bellingham, you'll know there's a truck border and the Peace Arch. They're really close to each other. The Peace Arch is the main one. So I think I know the guy. I think I did meet the guy that, he said there was a guy and a girl. He said a redheaded girl, and blah, blah, blah. Said she'd open up a lane when you got there, and sure as shit, when I got to the border, this lane opened up and I pulled up, and here's this redheaded girl. So I'm 90% sure it's her. So you gotta be thinking they're paying border guards, they're paying police. We're talking about people that work at the biggest banks in Canada, the biggest companies. We're talking Chevron. Well, Petrocan's a Canadian one, but we're talking Chevron. I'm trying to think of the other gas stations we have. We have a Shell here. There's a few gas stations in Richmond I really didn't go into. I'm assuming they have an employee or 2 that work at those. I mean, if they have them at all the other ones, but they're like, it's not like I'm going into these gas stations and I'm like, oh, this guy's fucking guilty, or oh, this guy works with them. It's literally from going in there and buying bad smokes from a lot of them, and then this Chevron at 3 and Blundell is literally like a spot that these guys hang out. Like, I would go in there and I would take pictures of license plate. There was a white Mercedes one time. And this is the Chevron that this Dollywall guy literally was behind the counter trying to get me to put my banking information in, and that's where he would park his car around the side, and that's where I saw him 2 times walk away from my house when I followed him after I caught him in my cable box. So I'm literally like upstairs, and I could hear my cable box isn't locked, and it's right in front of my house. It's a townhouse, and I could hear 2 people talking, and I ran downstairs and I opened my door, and these 2 guys just book it. They book it, and I run up to my cable, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I followed them, and they ran across over into the Chevron, and then I lost them into the Chevron, and then I think he went to his car. It was a G35 parked on Blundell. The other reason is so in this chat, this is like the last few days, that I don't think he necessarily knew exactly which place I lived in or who I was, whether I was my brother or someone else, but he asked these super strange questions. So he asked, does your cable box have a crack in it? And I didn't know that at the time, but obviously like a few days later and after this cable box incident, I went and looked at my cable box, and it has a crack in it. And he asked me, do I have a drill with a buffing wheel in my window? And I didn't even know what he was talking about until I looked on my back window one day, and there's a drill in my back like dining room window with a buffer wheel on it, and it was what my dad used to clean the barbecue with. So as soon as I noticed that, I'm like, holy shit, these guys know where I live, because this guy has asked me multiple questions about specific things at my house that I didn't even realize until like days later, when I was like looked at my box or saw that drill on the back window. He talked about an attic in the front of my garage. So I have a small attic in the front of my garage, and then an attic on the top of my house. So he wasn't asking me anything about that, but he was talking about those 2 things. Now, I understand some people can have an attic in their garage and on top of their house. I don't know how common that is to have both, but that's just another aligning factor. And there's probably about another 10 or 12 things that I'll get into in the future. I'll try and think about it, because this is going back like 2 fucking years now. So what else was there? Yeah, I mean, I haven't even got into how these guys were getting into my attic and my garage, because that is even more crazier. Like, I'm gonna have to go to the house and I'll explain. I'll be explaining all this. This is gonna be like hours and hours of explaining. I appreciate anyone that can just give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm not full of shit, that I'm not making this up, because it doesn't benefit me in any way to be making this shit up. Like, this is literally, like, I'm gonna say probably the biggest story in Canada, should be one of the biggest investigations in Canada. If I can get this out to enough people, I truly believe there will be people in Richmond and Vancouver that have been at one point harassed or followed by Tesla cars. I think that might be the easiest way, because I don't think a lot of people are going to understand even what's going on or who's doing it to them. Like, I know one other person these guys did it to, and he thought it was like the government tax, like Canada's not IRS or something else. I forget what Canada calls it, but he thought like the fucking tax collectors of Canada were following him in Tesla cars everywhere he went and like harassing him. And I'm just like, I don't even know how to explain to this guy that that's not what it was. And I'll try and find him. But these guys, for like, I don't know why they do this, but I've literally been like poisoning and fucking this guy over for like a year or 2. For all I know, he's gone. I'm assuming what they do is they fully take over his identity, sell it to like some Russian spy. You know, you can't have a white guy be a Chinese spy, or they do it to some other ethnicity, and then you have like a Chinese spy or Chinese nationalist or Russian nationalist now in Canada with a complete full identity record that can now maybe even like they operate in Washington State. Maybe that's just because we're close to the border and we go there. I don't know exactly what they're doing and how much they're in Washington State. But I believe the next step is, once you're a full Canadian citizen, you can kind of maybe try and marry an American, and now you have like lineage or like like, you know, you have a full identity. Maybe they even have kids, and like we're talking like this is like World War III, like soft, I guess you call it soft war. like I believe that most of these people don't even realize in this network, like the person that works at Bell in the fucking Richmond Center that's selling these IMEI and SIM card numbers might not even really know what these guys are doing with some of these identities. I mean, we'll find out. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions to some of these people, and I know a lot of them aren't good liars because I've been in the stores and I've been talking to some of these guys, and that's part of the reason, just from reading their behavior, as well as the fact that I would go to the store or I would go to this Apple store and immediately my phone would be hacked right after. Or the SIM card thing. I mean, this is something this guy just said in the chats. That's the only reason why I know they make $300 or $400. So I've been to some of these cell phone stores and they've admitted to it. So like a couple of the employees that just felt bad for me, or like I was in there, I'm like, look, if you're gonna sell me a SIM card and give this number away to this network, like just don't do it. They already have enough information. And they literally just looked at me and were just nice to me about it. They literally were just like, okay, like don't buy this fucking SIM card. Like you're just gonna waste $30. And that's just a really nice person. Like these aren't all just like bad people. They're not all gangsters. They're like the people that work at your local gas station, to your local fucking cell phone stores. So like, I don't even think the gas station ones are as important, but the cell phone stores and the Apple stores and any poisoning of goods. Like he's talking about these guys fucking rebottled water and milk, and they'll come into your house and poison what's in your fridge. They'll put these like arsenic burners in the eaves of your neighbors. Like they'll buy a house right beside you. They'll rent a house right beside you. You move to an apartment, they'll get the apartments right beside you and get whatever access they can. So the fact that they would put that much effort into so many people, like it can't just be about getting a credit card number or transferring a bank account unless you have a lot of money. So that's why I think these guys do multiple different things. And I believe the network's mostly funded by this Johnny Fong guy. He's a public figure. And I think if someone does a real good deep dive on this guy, I think he's got ties to the Chinese government. And I know our news here has talked a lot about our banks being infiltrated by the Chinese government. Well, how the fuck do these guys have employees at like the major banks here that are willing to, I don't know if they even jeopardize their jobs, but are willing to work at a bank and do that? Or, you know, cell phone company people don't make a lot of money. Like when you work in a cell phone store, I think it's minimum wage, which isn't bad in Canada, but the main thing I'll show about those stores is they're mostly not owned by Rogers, or I don't know if Bell might be all corporate, but you're gonna realize that a whole bunch of these stores are owned. Like if you go to any Rogers store from like Richmond to Surrey, I'm gonna say they're 90% brown people work in every single store, because I've went to every single store now. I'm starting to go to all these stores and see who works there, talk to them for a second, and my next step's to bring my phone in there. I don't want this to come off as like racist in any way, because like I said, there's a shit ton of Ukrainians. I can name at least 3 or 4 Ukrainians that are involved. One of them's a nurse in Richmond. Another one's, okay, he's Chinese, his name's Mike. He works as a nurse in Richmond. There's another connection that allegedly Bell Mobility bought out a company. It was a small cell phone company like 15 years ago. I think it's this guy named Tony, and there's this other old guy that I met, and I think they're the ones that owned a company that Bell bought out in like 2005 or something like that. And I think that's, or maybe 2010. And I think that might be one of the reasons why they realized how to do all this like SIM card swapping and jacking, and maybe they were already doing it back then with their company, but maybe they went under or something, because we really only have 3 cell phone companies here, maybe 4. So I can figure out what that company is. I forget the name of it. The guy said what the name of that company was. So I'll be able to find out a small cell phone company Bell bought out in 2005. What else is there? There's so much more, but it's really hard to like, this is like going over 2 years of like information, and I'm just sort of blurting it all out in one big rant right now. So that's the company that Bell bought out. They'll have their names, whoever the fuck those names are they bought out. But I believe it has to do with this Tony guy and this other old guy that I met in Richmond once. All right, let me think for a second, guys. If anyone's actually still watching this, I appreciate it. You know what? I'm going to stop this video and then start a new one because it's going to be so much to upload. So I'll stop this one and start a new one.